friends, welcome to episode 166 of Storyteller Conclave. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I'm Sarah.
I'm Rob.
Oh god, it feels so good to say that in person.
I know. It sounds better. I can adjust the microphones. There are things we can do, and we can have tea. We can have tea.
COVID, 0 of 10, would not recommend.
Nope, don't do it. Just don't do
God.
it. Yep.
And then,
if you can remove it from your game, do so. It's not necessary.
And then, of course, today I am just rocking the most blistering sinus headache.
You know, it's better than COVID.
It's better than COVID, though.
It's better than COVID.
Yeah. So
we take our hits where we can get them and walk away when we can.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a 101.
We do have a 101.
Like, I hate to just try to get into things, but I feel like there's a lot here. And we have some good questions, and we always seem to run a little longer on the 101s, so I feel like it's necessary.
Like, we should just get to it. I mean, we don't really have any gaming news to share or anything like that. You and I really haven't gamed or anything like that. So.
Mine's not until the end of the month, pretty much. So.
One of our friends just got back from out of the country, so that's been kind of holding up both of our games. And
yeah, it's kind of just made things a little quiet.
It's okay, though, honestly. I needed a break real quick, I think.
Especially with you not feeling well, so.
Yeah, not feeling well, and moving into a new phase of my game anyways, and I've got all the puzzle pieces on the table, and I know the picture they should make. I just need to piece them together in a way that's cohesive and tells a story.
And I didn't mind taking a giant break from mine, because literally up until yesterday, I was struggling to create this adventure.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean hard struggling, because my brain was like, what the hell do I slap in the middle of this stuff? Mm-hmm. Which is kind of important for today's show.
Yeah.
But it gave me, I had to flip my perspective a little bit to be able to get to the point that I needed to be able to come around and then say, okay, how can I populate this?
Yeah.
And as much as I'd love to do a teardown on my process on that, I can't. Maybe I'll hold us off for a Patreon or something. But
yeah.
We'll get to those. So last month when we were talking about 101, we were talking about adventures specifically. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about an adventure, we're talking about an extended section of the campaign. So not just one of the sessions, but maybe multiple sessions, which has a beginning and an end. Mm-hmm. So it wraps itself up, whether it's going into the dungeon and getting the thing and coming out, or rescuing the person, or retrieving the thing, or hunting the person down, whatever that is, it has an end piece to it.
You have a problem, you have a resolution, right. You have, Yeah.
So, again, to break that down, you've got your plot, which is just a description of what's happening. Mm-hmm. And I liked your baseball descriptions. I'll let you kind of continue those.
A plot is like the scheduled baseball game. The Tigers will face the Yankees on Tuesday.
Perfect. And then we have an adventure, which is how the things actually play out when the PCs get involved.
Yep, and it's like what actually happened at the game. The Tigers played the Yankees, and the Yankees won.
Yep, and all of the innings and all the crazy stuff that goes on in there. Mm-hmm. And then finally, we have a campaign, which is the series of the adventures.
Right, and that's kind of like the whole baseball season. The Yankees won this time, but the Tigers will be back after they play the Twins.
Yeah, the only difference here is that we also may include, like, the bus breaking down one night.
Sure.
Or running, playing at a little league stadium just for the fun of it with some kids. Sure. Or spring training, whatever. So the campaign includes adventures that are also beyond the plot, but don't necessarily disclude the plot, if you will.
Well, they string the plot together into a cohesive, longer story.
Right.
And it's sometimes referred to, like, in television as a meta plot.
Mm-hmm.
Where, I was a big fan of Burn Notice, and Burn Notice followed this formula very well.
Very well.
You had a season-long meta plot where you would delve into that just a little bit for, like, the first 10 minutes.
Yep.
And then a client would come up and be like, but this episode we're going to be doing some crazy stuff over here. Mm-hmm. And then you have that short little plot of the thing that they're doing for the client, and then the last 15 minutes is them getting back to the meta plot. Yeah. And the meta plot strung across every episode of the season to a grand climax, whereas the main plot was just for the episode.
Yeah. And I love that I love that Fringe basically, if you look at history, mm-hmm. and you know TV series and episodic adventure series, Fringe and A-Team were very similar. The difference was, in one case, the group was running from the problem, and the other one was trying to get back to the problem. But both had clients, both had weird situations that revolved around them, but always had interjecting returns of NPCs to remind you what the real plot was at all times. And that kind of adjustment and adaptation can often keep the story going, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Is like, how do you make it feel cohesive? How do you pull it all together and have a story? What is that flow? Now, we're going to say it again. Go back to episode 99 if you need the meat. Like, if you want to go beyond meat and potatoes at the table.
Yep. Episode 99 is called Narrative Flow. I know they're not numbered on some systems.
No, but you can go to our website and do the dig there, and or just look up Narrative Flow and you'll find it. So when we're talking about campaign flow, if you have an adventure, you have scenes that build, your campaign should have that direction and purpose that drives. Because in the end, what you want is your characters to grow. So if I'm putting together a campaign, I'm thinking about how I want my characters to develop. Now, I'm not dictating that development. I'm not going to say I want them to become better people. That's not development. Development is up to them. But I'm going to put situations forth and ask a question of how they're going to develop. And then let that be their growth pattern and have the story progress in that direction. I'm not there to write a novel. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people run into when they're, and it's something I definitely ran into when I first started out, was that you tend to novelize things. You think about, oh, I want this scene, and this is the climactic visual that I have for the ending with the villain.
And this will happen like this.
And that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you need to understand that no plot survives contact with your party. They will always come up with something off the wall. They will always approach it in a way that you do not foresee happening. And we talked about it in, I want to say one of the earlier 101s, talking about how essentially writing a novelization like that is like drawing an invisible line and then expecting your players to follow it, and then getting bent out of shape when they don't.
Exactly.
And it's best not to draw the line at all, but to just kind of know what's in what general direction. So if they head in that direction, you'll be prepared for it. So we did talk about building obstacles rather than plot, rather than scenes. And whatnot. And it kind of runs the same way on the campaign style, You don't want to plan for scenes down the road. You want to more plan what the trajectory of things are and where it's going to head, and then let the shenanigans along the path unfold organically.
There may be individuals you want people to meet, or at a certain time you think it's important to interject certain characters. Like, one of the things that I tend to do more so is I think about, okay, what information needs to be doled out and at what time?
Yep.
So I think of a type of character that needs to dole that information so that they can be either trusted or untrusted, or in some way represent the power of what that information is. Be it, I need people to know that this, that this orb is being mismanaged, right? So I need to present that at some time by someone who's a magical authority, and who, when they say it, is going to be fact. Regardless of if they're good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. If they're cackling it off to the side, saying, you'll never stop us now, we're going to use it for X nefarious reason, they're going to be like, oh crap, this guy would know. Okay, shit, now we're in trouble. Or a trusted person saying, looking at them saying, this definitely tells me this. Okay, that's all I have to keep in the side of my head, is that at this point in the story, they need to understand this step. I'm not going to paint out the exact scene that's going to occur, or even necessarily the person. But it definitely helps to know the world, to say, okay, now they're moving over here, how do I put that quote-unquote person in the right place to make that happen? And that can happen in any adventure.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where it needs to be. And that's the kind of, if you have foresight, that's the level of foresight you want to put into it, is saying, like, it's important for me to explain what's going on in the world, how the villain is progressing things, or how the world is progressing. And That's the flow where it starts interjecting different aspects of either world setting or villain, doom clocking. Those types of things can be set in motion.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
all right. I think that's all kind of like next level stuff.
yeah. So we're gonna dial it back.
So we're gonna dial it back a little bit. All right. So let's get down to the basics.
We're gonna bring it down a level.
All stories are born from conflict.
Yes.
Okay. Something is wrong, and somebody needs to do something about it, and therein lies the story. Okay. Now it can be any sorts of conflict, though. Okay, it can be your traditional. I know we typically use like D&D centric, examples on a lot of things because D&D is a large portion of the player base, but it's not everything. So it's good to think of conflict as basically just problems. It can be your traditional big bad evil guy wants to do something horrible, and you have to have your traditional save the world plot.
Doesn't mean that you can't be a bunch of travelers, maybe in a colony ship, and you're just set adrift looking for a new home.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
your space is the problem.
Yeah, like we're stuck in space. We need to find a habitable non-space place.
Not really a big bad evil guy, but boy howdy does it try to kill you.
It's amazing what survival games are doing these days.
Do you need to rescue the princess from the clutches of an evil dragon, Maybe it's not a big bad evil guy, it's just a malevolent force and you need to do something good about it. Or are you like a band of Shadowrunners just trying to survive the day-to-day in the sprawl?
I'm broke. That's the problem.
That's the problem. I'm broke and the corporations are screwing me over because they screw everyone over.
Yeah. I'm broke and hungry. Let's do this thing. And having that be the start position, the moving position of this is what is stringing things together. Is it the hunger, literally? The grumble in your stomach that says we're low on money.
What I have, bullets. What I don't have, tacos.
Exactly. To throw some things on a tailspin. What was that show about? Do you remember it?
Ducks with a plane.
Yeah.
And Baloo?
Yeah.
Baloo
he was a pilot.
Yeah.
It was a cargo company.
Yeah.
They were poor.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's the show. There were pirates that got in the way at times.
Yeah. Oh, I remember now. Yeah.
Man, Don Carnage.
That's such a good show.
It really was. But again, that kind of episodicness is the fact that the base of that show is, I'm hungry. We need food.
Yeah.
We have a plane that may or may not have enough fuel to do the thing we need to do.
Yeah.
There you go. It doesn't have to be aggression.
Exactly. But what you have is you have a conflict. You have a problem that needs solving, and it has to be solved by your protagonists. And that drives the action.
So, what does the journey look like through those scenarios? What are they going to have? And this is, I tend to look at this from different perspectives, but it's a matter of also catering to the type of people that you have. So if you have players, I will say this. A lot of times when you're presenting a story, you're presenting it in a very generic way. And we've talked about presenting your campaign in the Star Wars crawl. 2 paragraphs, real simple. Here's the universe. Here's the situation. What do you guys want to do in this world?
Yeah.
In this situation. I'll be a princess. Okay. What are you going to be? I'm going to be a smuggler with a ship. Okay. What are you guys? We're androids. Great. And you? I'm a vapor farmer. But actually, secretly, I have the Force. All right. I guess you took everything in dump stats and took Force at 10? Sure, whatever. You're a paladin. Got it.
I put 5 points in blue milk.
Fair enough. But, pulling that together in a cohesive campaign is no different than a bunch of those people saying, yeah, we're Imperial Guards for a princess. Okay. All right. You're about to be boarded. Oh,
yeah.
Crap. How are we going to get out of this thing? What are you guys? We're a bunch of Bothans. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
But that's the thing is that you will have to shift your story from a vision that you may have thought was more than that paragraph, more than that you wanted to write about specific people, and realize that they may want a social game. They may not necessarily want the story to be all about combat.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you may have very combat-focused people, and they may want lots of combat, and it all to be super dangerous and cunning and kind of things. You have to be able to adapt those, and that's where your adventures can help push that. But the core of the story is still the core of the conflict.
Yes. It's basically just how that conflict gets resolved. Then is the thing that can be very variable.
Yes.
All right. So campaigns should have a mission statement.
I agree with that statement every time.
That's good because you wrote it.
I did.
So what are you trying to tell with the story? What sort of story are you trying to tell? And let this mission statement kind of be your guiding star. You know, when you're lost for plot, when you're thinking to yourself like, oh gee, I don't know what happens next.
Right.
I don't know where I should go. I don't know what, I think maybe we should throw some combat in, but I don't know what type of combat.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's good to look back at this mission statement and kind of say like, this is the thing that I'm trying to do with the story.
And the mission statement should not include the players. It should not include elements necessarily of the story. And it should be pretty simple.
Yeah. One sentence. Royalty is power and power corrupts.
Perfect example. Greed is bad. It will get you killed.
Hope can be a guiding light in the darkness.
Very simple stories.
Cool.
Yeah, and you can pretty much wind almost every major story down to a single line that is guided through the entire thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at each one of the Star Wars series as individual stories. The title, although funny at times and not actually as accurate as we think it is, and some people say that the titles are mismanaged. They should be in different orders because they don't necessarily follow the movie. But The Return of a Jedi. Okay, there we go. Mm-hmm. That's pretty. Hope. Oh, A New Hope.
New Hope.
So there we go.
What happened to the old one?
Bad Penny Bothans. But that's the whole thing. It is designed to help you make. Let me put this. It's there for you when you look at your adventures. The thing then you need to do is take a step from that and say, can you ask the question, what if? Mm-hmm. So, for instance, I have this kind of guided story, and I have an idea that I want to do, like, what if a tyrant took over this area? Okay, that's something that could happen.
Sure.
Okay, the question then remains is, what are 10 things that could happen that fit within, royalty is power and power corrupts, and the story is about a tyrant taking over an area? That has nothing to do with the players. Because again, you have no idea what these characters are going to be. Mm-hmm. You can put them in the situation, but you have no idea what they're going to be. So what 10 things can hang off of that? If you can't necessarily come up with 10, maybe you need to make an adjustment. Maybe it's too narrow. Mm-hmm. Maybe your idea has gotten too tight.
It's a cause and effect exercise. It's kind of like I described in a previous 101 about the 5 whys.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
And this is this is almost like the 10 what ifs. Mm-hmm. So if a tyrant takes over an area, what happens? Okay, does it destabilize the economy? Okay. What would that look like?
You'd probably have resource shortage.
Merchants Guild might be jacking up prices on certain things, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, cool. We'll move on from that. We can explore that later.
Perfect.
Tyrant takes over an area. That means that his enemies or his allies become stronger, and the enemies of the crown become weaker. Okay, so maybe you have a rebellion.
Ooh, I like that.
Started against the tyrant.
I like revolutions.
Not everybody's going to agree with that. Okay. Yep. Maybe it's a small revolution. Maybe it's a big revolution. I don't know. We'll come back to it later, but we're going to jot revolution down.
Yep. That's a great option.
Like I said, his allies, this tyrant's allies, would get stronger. So maybe there's an alliance forged with typically an enemy kingdom that has now become an ally.
Perfect.
And so now we have not only this tyrant to deal with, but influences from foreign agitators as well.
Looking to fill in voids. Mm-hmm. You also have opportunists. People who are like, oh, with this tyrant, all it takes is a little stroke of his ego and I have a position. So now you have people trying to elevate themselves.
Yeah.
You have others who are rising to the call, if you will. And maybe they're standing on a lot of other people to get there.
Shifts in power leave power vacuums, and oftentimes that means lawlessness. So banditry might kick up in certain regions as the power vacuum takes place.
And the people who tend to have general control over that banditry may not, if they've fallen out of favor with said tyrant.
Exactly.
So now you have the people who the previous administration kind of said, you're doing a good enough job with, now at odds with the new ones. So there's a lot of power struggles. And we've talked about power influencing. We just got over talking about that with Dr. Jason. And that will be a leading line in a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so there you go. You said one thing, a tyrant takes over in a theme about how royalty corrupts. And power corrupts absolutely. And we came up with, 6, 7 ideas just off the top of our heads of, like, things that could be going on. Now, are these plots? Maybe. I mean, they're not really fully formed plots, but at least they're things that are happening that will affect how the players interact with the world.
Yep.
The players may want to try to resolve some of these problems. They may just be stones in the shoes of these adventurers as they go about their day-to-day stuff. Who knows? But there's stuff in your world, and it only takes you seconds to think about, like, what if this happened? What would ripple out from that?
So, another example. What if a commoner becomes next in line for the throne? The reason where this comes into kind of flavor and why I do this is, if you already said, I am the king, like one of the players becomes the king by, the whole sword and the stone type of thing, now they're limited. That player is not going to be able to do a lot because as a king, they're going to have guards and vassals and generals. They're not going to be allowed out.
Yeah.
So it's going to pigeonhole them in what they can do. But if they're next in line to be the king, like they're a prince or a duke of some kind, and it's clear that the throne is about to be vacated and there's a clear gap to them, now they have to prepare for it. Now there's a lot more available to them. And available to you as the storyteller to say different adventures. They have to make allies. They have to watch out for enemies. They have to make agreements. They have to feel what it's like to soon become the king. That pull toward power.
Yep. All sorts of different hooks you can do there.
Yep.
The other big thing is, and this is a delicate one, have an ending in mind. And I'm going to put a giant asterisk in front of that.
Agreed.
Because there's a way to have an ending in mind, and there's a way not to have an ending in mind. So, what you don't want to do is don't write your ending with a capital W. Okay,
Nope.
Don't sit down and say the players are going to get the MacGuffin, and then the players are going to find the villain, and then they're going to fight him, and then they're going to win, and everybody's going to be happy at the end.
Yep.
Like, that's taking away a lot of the player's agency and stuff like that. And I guarantee, like I said, no plot survives contact with your players. It will not happen like that.
Nope.
Maybe they don't get the MacGuffin. Maybe they get the MacGuffin, but they sell it to a merchant because they don't realize what it is. Lots of things can happen on the way there before it comes to players will get the MacGuffin and they will confront the villain with it.
A great example of that is, so our guys are going to they're going to find this MacGuffin, and they're going to destroy it. They're going to finally make it to the end. They're going to get it to the destruction thing. They're going to get rid of it, and one of the players goes, no.
Throw it into the lava!
And then that player just happens to get ganked by the next group of orcs because it happens, and now it's lost.
Yep.
So the next gaming group who comes along
get some giant eagles, right? And
exactly.
All right. So that's what not to do. So what do? You want to have an end goal in mind for the campaign's resolution.
Whether it's your big bad evil guy who just wants to launch the missile.
Yeah. The way I would think of it is think of it's a little more like a road trip.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think it's a great way.
I know we're going to end up in Cleveland. I don't know how we're going to get there. Are we going to take surface streets? Or are we going to take I-75 to I-90? I don't know. But there's a lot of different roads that can get us to Cleveland, and the adventure is the thing that happens along the way.
Yep.
But we're going to be heading in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And if they try to stray too far off the path, certain roads might be closed that put them back on the freeway.
Mm-hmm.
The kindly old man who gives them directions will point them towards Cleveland. You know, things like that, to not railroad, but nudge in a direction.
You have to get $25,000 to Cleveland to pay the taxes for the orphanage.
Yeah, sure.
Good luck.
Sure. But one way or another, that's kind of how your campaign flow towards an ending goes. You're not saying we're going to show up in Cleveland at exactly, blah, 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 and we're going to take this road to get there. You don't know any of that.
Yep.
But you can point them in a direction and you can guide them there. And one of the big ways you do that is with your antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say big bad evil guy, but not every campaign has a big bad evil guy.
Or needs one.
For instance, kind of going back to our old examples, the party is either going to thwart the big bad evil guy, or the big bad evil guy will succeed in their master plan and bring ruin. Sometimes that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Your colony ship will eventually find a new homeworld, or you're going to succumb to the harshness of space.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
You will rescue the princess and defeat the dragon, or you're going to be slain trying.
And there'll be another one after you.
And there'll be another one afterwards. Your Shadowrunners may untangle the corporate plot and thwart their machinations, or they're killed and captured by the merciless megacorp.
Or become very famous rockers.
That
happens. But the idea is that it's a guiding star. It's not the train approaching the group on the rails, because they'll just step to the side.
Yeah.
But it is out there. It is on the way.
And so you want it to be your guiding star that's kind of pointing you in a direction. And it's okay to have some fun side stuff happening, like not, on your road to the ending, it's okay to stop at a diner and have or have a beach episode along the way or whatever.
I'm with you.
That's perfectly fine, but I would say try not to make too many random side jaunts and side quests and stuff like that. Otherwise, you will find that your players get very distracted and, lose sight of what the big goal is.
Yeah.
Of your campaign. They're gonna forget that the big bad evil guy is out there because they're too busy concentrating on finding some, random farmer's lost cows because you decided that was a fun side quest,
Truth. Unless
too many of those things can distract.
Yeah, and at a certain point, you will feel like you need to steal the toys from them because they've been playing with them for too long.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they just want to play with the toys instead of doing the thing. And that we've talked about that. Sidestepping your plot and moving in another direction.
Yep.
But that is for another day. The real question is okay, so now that we know this, now that we know that we have to have this mission statement, we have to understand what the what-ifs are available, what do we actually write, and from what point of view? I mean, do we write a heroic story for our players to be dashed through?
For me, I mostly write from my antagonist's point of view.
It's a very good way to write.
Because the antagonist is going to be the force in the story that is handing all of the complications to the players.
Okay.
And so it's really kind of about what your antagonist wants, isn't it?
I definitely would agree with that.
So, like, if your antagonist is the big bad evil guy, whether it's the big bad evil guy, the harshness of space, the evil Cthulhu worshipping cult, whatever, it's the force driving the conflict, usually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, thinking about what their plans are, or what complications they'll offer in the case of, like, a non-sentient, the vastness of space is the antagonist, the vastness of space doesn't want anything. But it also provides nothing. It cares not for you.
Correct.
And that in itself is kind of a motivation. You know what the vastness of space will do. Nothing. It will not nurture you.
Mm-mm.
So you survive or you don't.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But you think about what the antagonist's plans are. And, keep it relatively simple, I would say.
Yeah.
This doesn't need to be a huge, complicated machination of wheels within wheels, Game of Thrones style thing that goes on for years upon years.
Shut up.
I'm speaking to my strengths, not against yours.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, relatively simple example. Big bad evil guy wants to become a god.
Okay.
Because he seeks power for personal reasons. I don't know. Maybe he's got some damage. He's got some PTSD he's trying to get over.
Daddy issues?
Daddy issues. Who knows?
Yep.
People seek power for all sorts of different things.
Agreed.
Usually it's because they want to be the lead dog and they don't want anybody else to be the lead dog.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
You can come up with whatever you want. Okay, but the main thing here is big bad evil guy wants to become a god.
Mm-hmm.
To do this, he needs to find a magical artifact. Some sort of MacGuffin. Alright?
Fair.
The party is going to want to stop him. Because he uses his current power for evil, and if he becomes a god, he's going to be a godlike jerk instead of a human jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Follow?
Totally.
Alright. So, start with a plot showing how evil he is.
Something heinous.
Yeah, the players need to understand that. Maybe it's not something as overt as kicking a puppy or something like that, but, give him a puppy to kick. Give him a reason to distrust and fear him, but maybe not put him in direct conflict with him, because you want this guy to be a villain. You don't want them to, decide to just murder him, outright. Have him send minions. Have his evils be political evils, not I killed your parents in front of you evils, Don't expose him to the party because you don't want them to just decide to kill him. But you need them to understand that this is an evil guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you run some plots, some adventures, where the big bad evil guy discovers the MacGuffin that will make him a god.
Mm-hmm.
Give the players an opportunity to meddle with his plot. Maybe stop him from succeeding. Think about who helps him. Who else wants to stop him other than the players? Where's the artifact hidden away? And why hasn't it been found before?
Mm-hmm.
How did the big bad evil guy learn of it himself?
Okay.
All of these questions are great little what-ifs. Like we were talking about earlier.
Right. And when you're talking about, rises,
Mm-hmm.
because at these points, each one of these stages, as you get deeper and deeper into what the villain knows and what they can do about it,
Mm-hmm.
stages things up a level so that you get that heightened sense of you're coming to that rise.
Escalation is the word you're
Exactly.
looking for. And then, this can happen a lot of different ways. We've got the plot. We've kind of got the ending, in that we know he's going to try to ascend to godhood. But again, we don't know what's going to happen. So we haven't written it. We just know where we're headed. The party can stop him from ascending. The third act can happen where they now need to kill or contain a malevolent god if he succeeds. The stakes are raised, though, and that can be an exciting climax. Do the characters need to become gods themselves to fight him? Are there other powerful artifacts that could help thwart the gods? If you're a Critical Role fan, are there vestiges of divergence?
Yeah.
Who's going to help them? Who's going to stand in their way?
Who's just going to stand to the side?
Yeah,
Who's going to
exactly.
need convincing?
Exactly. So all these things, and all that is just, written from the thesis statement of big bad evil guy wants to become a god.
Yeah.
And you've got that entire plot arc there. I could run that for 50 game sessions. Yeah. Easily.
And God, all of that is about a power struggle. Mm-hmm. Someone wanting to become powerful. It doesn't matter where that's happening. That can happen in smaller scales. Yeah. I always come back to the school, the classroom. There's a principal, wants to remain in power, maybe wants to be the superintendent. What is he going to do about that? Again, all of those same inquiries that you just added up all fit within a school setting, a simple high school setting. Teachers, PTA, external profiteers of corporations who are helping things out, the community, the police.
I'm the superintendent. How can you kill the superintendent? What a grand and intoxicating innocence. I love it.
Effectively do no wrong.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
It's funny to say it, but you can always power scale.
Mm-hmm.
You will inevitably think about things in a grander sense, but there is no reason why you can't scale a plot back to something simpler.
Sure. Does not all have to be doom and gloom, save the world stuff. Sometimes it's literally just make it through the school year.
Yeah. And one of my favorite kind of campaign plots that string together are the ones that the players create. Mm-hmm. You have a session 0, and during that session 0, they wrong someone. And that person takes it personally.
Did you get session 0 or the first
First action. First, the milk run.
The milk run. Okay,
we'll say the 0.5, the milk run, if you need one of those, and they just do something stupid during the milk run, and now that thing in the milk run is following them.
Becomes a pebble in their shoe,
right? And slowly grows bigger.
Yep.
Until they recognize that it's there, and now is it too late?
You had a thing in here about rewriting existing stories to tabletop RPG campaigns that I thought was really brilliant.
Yeah, so if you, I'm gonna tell you a story.
The expert way to steal things for your game.
Yeah,
and you should,
you should totally do this. You should 100%. Totally do this. So I'm gonna say this one, and we'll see what comes off of this. Which is funny because we've got Sean in the room right now, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna see what Sean thinks this is. So. A tyrant is sending in troops to clear out all the mages, wizards, and magic folk in an area so it's easier to take over that area. The group lives there. They all have magical abilities of some kind and would rather not move. The tyrant is easy to bargain with and offers to leave the area as it is if they are willing to retrieve a MacGuffin for him. Truth be told, MacGuffin actually makes him the lawful king. What story is this? Well, that's the point.
Okay,
it's a generality.
He said he doesn't know in case you didn't hear.
Yeah, it's a generality. He didn't know what it was, but really it is the journey is the whole idea behind this. I'm not... My thought behind the thesis statement kind of this is the characters discovered that the magic were their friends that they made along the way. That's my thesis of this whole thing. I'm not worried about the grandness of the story. The truth be told, this could be Robin Hood. This could be Shrek.
Yeah.
This could be a lot of stories because it comes down to how the players interact with the situation, how their characters motivate and move things. Do they become bandits of the forest and just mess with the Duke or this Viscount until they can take control of it, of the situation? Or do they go and handle the situation immediately before it gets out of hand?
Yeah.
And not care necessarily except for their own little piece of the pie. And they're like, do I get what we want back? Yes. Okay, fine. I don't care about the rest of it. I just want my crap back. What do I have to do?
Yep.
Kind of a thing.
It's so easy to make a campaign just by grabbing your favorite movie, filing off the serial numbers so it becomes a completely unrecognizable, and then just telling the root problem of that story.
Exactly.
And seeing how it plays.
Exactly.
And usually you're not going to get, you're almost never going to get an exact replication of that story. So the thing is, your players aren't going to look at you in session 27 and go, wait a minute, is this Die Hard? Maybe it is, but chances are they have made very different choices than John McClane has.
Correct.
Yeah, Sean is saying he's used song lyrics before that have done that.
100% I agree.
But no one's ever stopped in your game and gone, wait a minute, is this Schism by Tool?
But again, at the same time, it's a matter of, I like, in this particular example, grabbing existing stories, existing content, looking at the very opening premise. Again, Star Wars, A New Hope. It's very simple. Large force is trying to take over an area that has a rebel force attempting to fight it, and the plans of what's going on is being transferred. And it's the only hope that they have of ending this current position. They're not going to be able to end the entire empire, but they're going to be able to stop its advancement in an area.
The blueprints for their impenetrable fortress are in their hands. Yeah,
sure, or of a super weapon, or of something.
Sure,
right. That is not necessarily just Star Wars. That is so many stories that are wrapped up behind that. Three Musketeers is that story in a different light. So, Steel. These ideas are not original by any means. It's just the setting and how your characters are going to interact with that setting that are going to shift. And you're going to have to shift your mind frame. Because obviously the ending of Three Musketeers is not the ending of Star Wars. Nor is the ending of Shrek the same as the ending of Robin Hood.
Exactly. But y'all start out in very similar ways.
Exceptionally.
But you tell very different tonal stories.
So movement through.
Movement. So there's a common urge for everything to be go go go. Everything's on fire. Must save the world.
Always, at all times.
If you don't act immediately, the big bad evil guy will destroy everything. Go 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 go. And personally, I find that exhausting. So not everything has to be urgent. Even when the end of the world is nigh, there are probably going to be times when, like, the big bad evil guy or whatever is trying to end the world is just biding their time and nothing important is happening. Maybe they need to wait for the solstice. Maybe they haven't found the MacGuffin they're looking for, and so they're just kind of laying low.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. There's a bunch of different things that can be happening that can offer literally months of downtime.
One of my favorite things that came up out of that concept was someone saying that if it was just a person doing everything themselves, they could get things done. But even they get lazy, sick, have trouble, and things like that. The moment that you put 2 other people working for them, you've now just increased the laziness factor by 4-fold.
Yeah. Someone's
going to look at them and say, it's my day off.
It reminds me of Mark Twain. God created the idiot for practice, and then he created the school board.
Yes. Yes. It's a good way of saying it.
Or conversely, a camel is a horse designed by a committee.
Yeah. And we won't even talk about platypus.
So yeah, exactly.
Platypi?
The more people you add in, the more moving parts you add in, the longer things are just going to take. So if your big bad evil guy is trying to run a vast conspiracy involving thousands of people, I guarantee they're not getting it done tomorrow.
Definitely not.
All this is to say, give your players some time to just have agency and control and pursue their own goals. This is an ebb and flow approach that I like to use. You do some plot where, you know, things are urgent, the characters must act, they must react to things that are happening in the world, that are acting upon them, that are acting upon others who need them.
Yes.
But then when that's done, like, chill out for a second. Let the players go, like, okay, I've been wanting to craft a magical artifact, or I've been wanting to purchase some new drones for, you know, for my character, or whatever.
I want to learn something.
Yeah, I want to take some time to study this alien language we picked up along the way, so I can talk with these aliens that are out here in this region of space for, you know.
Some game systems lean into it hard.
Yeah.
You know, we have our mouse guard that we've talked about. The One Ring really leans into that. The idea of the return. It is not necessarily returning to base, but it's a return to self.
Yeah.
Every day can't be a sweating slog, you know, hack 'em up fest or socialite fest or whatever.
Sure.
It can't all be about obstacles.
Exactly. If you're out there rescuing the princess, you're not living life for you. You're living life for the princess.
Right.
Right? So when do you get to take care of you? When do you get to take care of your own things? And this can be as little stuff as, like, downtime. You know, taking care of little things like, you know, going and visiting NPCs, or trying to craft a magic item, or like, you know, like I said, doing some shopping and whatnot. Or it can be as complicated as, I picked up this magical artifact called the Beacon of Meridia.
Oh, Lord.
And she has summoned me to her shrine that is halfway across Cyrodiil. We should go see what this is all about. And it becomes a personal plot. Now, there was some urgency once you guys got there, but you initiated that. You had the downtime to say, okay, nothing's going on. We handled the bandit threat. Nobody else is trying to kick in our doors right now. Let's go out here and see what this thing's beckoning me to do.
Right.
And there you go. And you have time for personal plots. And then, now we're done with that. Now, I'm going to start pushing against you with external plot again. And then after we do that for a little while, we're going to back off. And if players have their own, you know, their own agency that they want to pursue, be it small downtime things, or I want to partake on a quest to go do X, Y, or Z, now we've got that time to do it.
Yes, exactly. And it doesn't mean that you can't put things back on and have the doom clock tick.
Sure.
Hard moves tend to do this really well, especially when you have settings where the world around them is reacting and then they're reacting to those moments. So, yeah, maybe they just finished, you know, a big shopping and build-up extravaganza, and somebody, you know, had a great connection with their god, or, you know, somebody else maybe got married. And then right at the end, you know, everyone's, you know, celebrating whatever, and the windows get blown wide open, and as everything billows, a red cloud forms over the mountain in the distance as a beacon of, you know, deep red light fills the sky. And you're like, oh no. That can't be good.
It's back on.
That's right.
It's back on. Back to adventure, everybody.
Yep, exactly.
We had our downtime. And then my last piece of advice here is the revolving NPC mill.
God, yes.
And this is one of my favorite things to do. Every NPC you write is a character that lives in your world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as you are populating your world, as your plot moves forward, there is an instinct to say, okay, that shopkeeper or that guard or that soldier or whatever, or even like humanoid enemies you might fight.
Yeah.
To kind of discard them and be like, okay, well, we're not in that scene anymore, so they're done.
Mm-hmm.
Put them back in your bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're still characters, unless they are dead, and sometimes if they're not, depending on your world.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own goals, they have their own interests, and they should have their own growth and stuff like that. Okay. When you need an NPC for a certain plot, look back at NPCs you've actually already introduced and see if one of those will fit the story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, first off, this reintroduces characters that they already know. They already have some sort of relationship with. There's already baggage there. Saves time on building that investment with the NPC.
Mm-hmm.
Because they already have an opinion about this person, because they've met them before. Even if just in passing, it's just like, oh yeah, they were nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, but they've already got that opinion. You know, they don't have to figure them all out again. And it makes your world feel more lived in that way, because this person has come back around. They're still there, you know, because they live there, they work there, whatever.
Right.
Maybe they're on a journey. You're going to run into them on the road, you know, like, oh, hey, I'm surprised not seeing you in, you know, such and such a town. What are you doing? Oh, well, I picked up and moved business after you guys bought all that stuff from me. I had enough, money to upgrade my shop, so I moved over here instead. Boom. Recurring character.
Yep.
You know? And these NPCs are going to have their own plot arcs as well. Okay, so like I was just saying, like, you know, characters will be affected by the plot. They will grow and change along with the events of your story. So, like, watching a young woman join the guard. Okay, cool. She got a job. Nice. Happy for her. We barely know her. 2 plots later, they're leading the charge against the monster that's attacking the city. And you're like, hey, isn't that woman that we helped join the guard? We helped get her this job? Like, look at her leading the charge. She's come a long way. We're really proud of her. And you wouldn't have that reaction if it was just some random NPC, you know?
Right.
And then, handful of plots later, you find her in a tavern somewhere, nursing a pint, and she's a destitute veteran, fighting her PTSD, having lost her comrades in that monster attack.
Yeah,
you know?
Couldn't go back and pick up the sword again.
And I mean, that would be sad, but it's more sad because it's that girl that you helped get the job in the guard.
Right.
You know?
And what information does she have now for the group?
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
What truths does she know?
But it's going to have all the more weight because you've got that investment behind her. It could be anyone.
Yeah. So, a small lesson here that Sara teaches me every time she runs a game is don't lock your NPCs up. Don't lock them behind counters. Don't lock them behind time. Don't lock them behind things. Give them the ability to move and grow. And you can use them again and again, and your players will appreciate it. I haven't really done it since 7C, and I need to get back to it.
Yeah, yeah. And keep in mind, too, that, like, alliances shift. Things that you know, NPCs you wrote as antagonists might become allies. Allies might become antagonists.
Or obstacles at the very least.
Or obstacles, yeah. Sometimes, like, you know, the party line shifts.
One of my favorite things is the captain of the guard that you get to know well, and then you do something illegal. And he comes out in the street, like, just after it happens, it's just, and you're like, oh god, we've been caught. And he just looks at you and goes, I'll give you a head start.
Yep.
It takes a minute for me to load my firearm. And he turns around, and you're like, oh, this is the time when we go.
Right.
Because you know that the pistol is not going to be shot at you, but it is going to alert everyone else to that area.
Yep.
And
I did this to you guys with a couple NPCs in my game. There was a random bandit that you guys decided not to kill in a bandit encounter.
Yes.
And you took him captive. You tortured him for information.
We did.
You broke his fingers and such like that.
We did.
And then you basically slapped him on the ass and told him to ride east
And
until
not come back.
until he got to Morrowind and don't come back.
And he came back.
And he came back. He made it as far as the next town over and decided that was far enough, and he got a job at the Fighters Guild and tried to turn his life around and make something of himself. And he didn't figure he'd ever see you guys again.
Yep.
But I needed, well, I'll tell you what that was. I needed a couple Fighters Guild people.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yep.
I could have just written some random Fighters Guild people that you'd never met before and you would never see again. But I thought, wouldn't it be great?
Mm-hmm. What if?
What if these were people you already knew? Not only the dude you tortured, who's going to sit across the table from you and go, yeah, I've got a job now, I'm gainfully employed, I got out of the banditry gig, and you jerks broke my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
I hate you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy sitting next to them is one of your former colleagues that you got in a fight with, who left for greener pastures, and greener pastures happened to be that tavern you washed up in.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly.
And so instead of having two random Fighters Guild dudes that you'd never met before, wouldn't care about afterwards, I now have two people staring across from you at a table that you have very strong emotions about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
All about motivations. So we do have some questions. I'd like to get to those. I think they're great. Nevum was able to shoot us some questions. We're hoping for some more, but, times are what they are.
Nevum always asks great questions.
But it's always great. So let's start with this first one. How to incorporate already written adventures, not written by ourselves, into a homemade campaign? Well, scrub off the serial numbers. That's my first thing. Like, literally, it doesn't matter where it is. Find the meat and potatoes of that adventure. Mm-hmm. All of them will have a basics the base is very simple. And I honestly wish that adventurers had written their thesis statements at the top. Like, here's my mission statement, here's the blurb. And if every adventure started with that, you could literally plug an adventure into anything. But scrub the serial numbers off, see what the meat and potatoes of that adventure really is.
Yeah.
And it can literally fit anything. I could grab D&D adventures and put them into a sci-fi game without a problem.
Sure.
Because it's irrelevant that the adventure is about, that this particular predefined adventure is about going to a dangerous place and or getting stuck in a dangerous place and trying to figure out the proper way out of it. Mm-hmm. That's the story. It doesn't matter that it's a vampiric undead area with a vampire lord who's running everything.
Yeah, exactly. You pick up Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and it doesn't matter that it's Saltmarsh. It can be whatever place fits in your setting, you know?
The specifics of the MacGuffin in it is probably the most significant point, but really what it comes down to is just scrubbing things off until you get to the very meat of the story, and then deciding how much you want to lean into that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Plug your own NPCs into it as well. Because there's going to be a bar. There's going to, there's going to be the aforementioned theme bar, which is going to be there to present information or a minor conflict. There's going to be scenes where there's going to be some kind of a rise where you have people either attacking the group or the group running into them. And a situation arising from that. It doesn't matter what that is. It's about the information that comes out of it. What do they learn?
Yeah.
From that incident, that inciting incident. What does that lead them to? Seriously, it could be anything. It could be asteroids in space as much as it is a salt marsh.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Exactly. No, I have nothing to add. File the serial numbers off and go from there.
Yeah.
Alright, next question is, do all adventures have to move the plot forward in a campaign?
No. And the only reason why I say that is that some adventures within a story are for players.
Yes.
If you have a player who has shown interest in advancing themselves and growing, having some level of development, there's nothing that says that your adventure has to meet with plot standards of the campaign.
Yeah.
As long as it sits within the framework and the feel, I think it works. And there's nothing to say that you can't just have an adventure that goes off the rails into something fun if that's what's needed. For instance, you've got a very dark campaign where the characters are constantly going into a dark realm to get resources to be able to handle closing off of the dark realm because it constantly spits out terrible things, right? Why not give them a vacation moment?
Yeah.
It worked in Avatar.
Beach episode, yeah.
Exactly. And even the beach episode had conflict.
Yeah.
Had resolution because there was character growth involved, but it was still fun.
Yeah.
It was something different.
I think the answer I want to give here, very, very much like yours, is that do all adventures have to move the plot forward? No, but they should advance something.
All have some level of development in them.
Exactly. Someone should walk away changed. They should walk away having grown in some way.
Not just by XP.
Not just by XP, but like they should have learned a lesson or advanced a personal agenda.
Changed a goal.
Found out that the thing they were looking for wasn't all that.
Yeah, perception changes.
Walked out with less disillusionment.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. And sometimes you can get away with doing two at the same time. It's not always the same.
Sure.
But you never know. You get lucky sometimes.
But yeah, no, not everything has to move the plot forward, but I say like it should be on topic.
Mm-hmm.
You know? If it doesn't have to do with your plot, it should have to do with one of your characters.
Or yeah, it should definitely do. And still sit within your world framework.
Yeah.
Don't go crazy.
I would avoid the side quest trap.
Yes.
Of like, random farmer Bob says he wants you to find his cows. Did the big bad evil guy steal his cows? No, they're just gone. He's just a random farmer. You've never met him before. You'll never meet him again. Go find his cows. Doesn't really have anything to do with anything. No players are really going to grow by completing that. It's really just kind of a distraction. Sometimes you need that, like if you like don't like legitimately don't have anything planned for your session and you're blanking and you just want to run some random stuff to fill in the game so that you guys can play.
Mm-hmm.
But I would really avoid it unless you have to.
Yeah, and in all honesty, take a hard look at your players and you will find something that they're going to want to do.
Oh yeah,
as a side thing.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of come back to this, like, ask your players what they want.
Ask.
Literally, just straight up ask your players what they want. What sort of story are you trying to tell with this character? Where do you see this character going?
Yep.
What does the ending of your story look like in your mind?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily with his campaign. Like, what is the character's end?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to reach it necessarily in this campaign either.
Sure.
But it's going to be a step in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And even if they don't give you an answer, they at least get some thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they'll have an answer for you later.
Yeah. So next month's 101, we are talking about populating your world, which is putting stuff in it.
Yeah.
That isn't just plot.
How do you make your world feel alive?
Yeah. That's always tricky.
It's a little tricky.
And it can sometimes feel a little daunting at scale. But our next show is a system spotlight.
Yep.
And Sarah asked me to do 7th Sea 2nd Edition. Sarah, why did you ask me to do 7th Sea 2nd Edition?
See, I got thinking about this Ship of Theseus concept, right?
Yeah.
About how changes to editions sometimes are too big, too broad, and that system is rejected broadly by its fan base. And kind of wanted to do a system that we didn't like.
Yeah. And how I feel about it at this moment in time, and giving it a second look, and basically really taking a deep dive on it.
Yeah.
The part that gets me is, I can't wait till you tear the mechanics apart.
I mean, sure.
It's gonna be, you're gonna look at it and you're gonna have your fun with it. And, and I think it'll be good because you've distanced yourself enough from 7th Sea 1st Edition.
Yep. Alright, you can find us on Twitter at st_conclave, on Instagram at st_conclave. Listen to us live every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave. And join us up on our Discord. We'd love to have you join the discussion, shoot us some show questions and whatnot, talk with the other great storytellers that are up there, bounce your ideas off them. You can find that link on our Twitter as well as our website, storytellerconclave.com.
We'd like to thank our Patreon members who help us out every month, especially our name members, Knox in the Box, Subjet, Sam, The Arcane Asylum, Sparkle Motion Veteran, and Hulavu. We really appreciate all your support. Our pre-show music is by Arcane Anthems. You can find that at patreon.com/arcaneanthems. And our intro music is Beyond the Warriors by Geefrog. You can find that at geefrog.bandcamp.com or on Google Music. And our outro music, Only Our Footprints in the Sand, is by Midair Machine. You can find that at freemusicarchive.org.
A big shout out, as always, to our families, Vicky and Sean. Thank you so much for loving us. Thank you, Sean, for being in the studio with us tonight. All of our friends who sat with us at our tables to give these great stories to share with you, and you, every single one of our listeners. We love you so much.
Love you.
Good night.
Good night.